Welcome back to the Power of X, where we explore your true potential and define the X factor that makes you unique. We're here today with Joe Laxton and Jim Wilterdink, VP and President of X Factor Labs. Joe, what have you seen on social media recently that, recent biohacks, recent fads that just make your head spin?
So years and years of doing this, I see them all the time. And I would say probably the biggest one that stands out right now for me is these big long duration fasts, like, the 72-hour fast that's going to fix your entire life and, do this entire reset to get your body to do everything compliant, and right, your body's just going to magically get out of its own way. If you just get through these 72 hours, it's going to be smooth sailing. Now, are there proven benefits to fasting? Absolutely, right? So a lot of times they take these where it's like, yes, there is some evidence, but yet the claim doesn't match up to the futuristic self that it's going to create. Yes, somebody could do a 72-hour fast. Yes, they can do, some metabolic switches in there. But is it going to be this magical thing that people anticipate it doing? It just doesn't. They always fall short, because one of the things that they always forget is we are all different individuals. What worked for, because a lot of times we have all this anecdotal type stuff. I did this, therefore it led to this, so therefore it will work for everybody who tries this. And that's, and it's just leading people down that frustration hole.
Oh boy, I think you touched on one that is really popular. So I was reading a book. Actually, it's an audio book. It's a series of podcasts that Michael Easter put together. It's called Embrace Discomfort. And he was talking about how Americans, particularly, other countries too, but Americans in particular, eat out of boredom as
Yeah.
much as we do out of hunger. And further, we eat garbage instead of actual nutrition for our bodies. And when you started saying, the fact, I could list probably three or four people that I've seen, and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm doing this intermittent fasting. And when you stop and think about that, it's just math. Okay, so you quit feeding your face all the time and you actually just eat a couple meals, which is probably all we really need anyways, as long as they're nutritional. And so I walk away and I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. Of course you're losing weight. You're not feeding your face 24/7.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you got into a calorie deficit, huh? Magical. Like there was a gal. She posted something on Facebook about doing a 72-hour fast, and she took pictures of her water bottles and all the stuff that she was doing, and like she lost like 12 pounds in like 72 hours. And I'm like, she's like, this was, this guy. Awesome. Of course you lost weight. You didn't eat. you know. Um, and that's where I always look at, but now what? You're going to continue to not eat. You're going to, like, where's your energy levels? Where's your muscle mass? Now what? And it's like all these short-term fixes, and I get it, because it's sold as this reset. It's sold as, your body, we don't have an on and off switch, right? We aren't our alt control delete or whatever the heck that is, or right. The old way to just, like that was the unplug it and plug it, back in. Our bodies do not have that. They just don't.
Right.
I mean, all of these resets, metabolic reset, all these things, these are, a lot of times these are just taglines, because anytime you ask somebody, say, what is a metabolic reset? Like, I don't know. It's just where you
Buzzword.
just reset, it's just right. We just throw these out there, and I've done stuff like that in the past,
We
where,
all have.
I read a book, I listened to something, like, man, that makes sense. And then I just regurgitate it. And then somebody asked me what that means. And I'm like, I don't know. you know, and
Right.
I'm just one to review everything I do, but that topic of saying what people are doing is they're looking for the biohack, versus an evidence-based protocol designed for each individual. And then we bring those two worlds together, and we say, let's fight it out. And then let's see which one's going to work. And what
Right.
would the evidence base say to that? Well, the evidence base would say, okay, well, let's look at genetics. Let's look at environmental factors. Let's look at your own goals. This person might not even have the same goal as that person, right? It's
Right.
like I always say, whatever line you get in, you'll end up in that result. Like I'm not, I'm, my kids go to like amusement parks, right? And we get them like, summer passes. And then, my wife can't go. So I go and I'm like, man, you're going with the wrong parent because you're going to want to ride the loop-de-loop thing that's going to make you puke. And I don't want to. I want to ride the teacups and sit and chill, right?
The teacups make me puke.
But if I get in the line for the loop-de-loops, guess what? And
you get to the loop-de-loops.
And I think it's the teacups. Joe's going on the loop-de-loop, right? So, if I get, if I'm, trying to train for a 5K, but I start training like a bodybuilder, I'm not going to get in, shape for the 5K. So first off, we do have to identify where do you want to go?
Yeah. What's the objective?
And if this biohack, all these things that are out there, and typically speaking, not always, but when you read or click on that link that says the new biohack, you're about to be fed some BS. Is there some evidence behind it? Yes. But at the same time, it's typically they're going to sell some program that they have a new book and there's a new product designed for it and all these things that are out there versus saying, hey, just pump the brakes for a little bit. Your genetics are unique. Your biology is completely different than anybody else's out there. That is going to be the evidence that needs to base your foundation on what you're doing. Biohacks are not a foundational program.
Right.
72-hour fasts are not a foundational program. Cold plunges are not a foundational program. A specific name diet is not a foundational program. This particular supplement, all these things that are out there are not a foundation to build upon. They're tools that can be thrown in, but they're not a foundation. So therefore, if it's not a foundation, don't start tossing all your money at it first.
Right. Well, I think we're all looking for that cheat code, as a collective society, which is also probably one of the biggest deterrents from true health because we jump from one thing to the next thing. And I'll take it to investing is, one of the biggest and most costly mistakes people can make is not buying the wrong investment. It's jumping from one to the next to the next. You always lose when you jump around. You stay the course. And I think that's the hard part with what we're talking about with all the biohacks is, so the latest thing that I've got a, real thorn in my side for, because I think it's really going to hurt people, is GLP-1s.
Yeah.
And I've sat on webinars. I've mentioned Dr. Grabowski and Cell Science and his interpretation. And so he runs nutrition clinics and almost, I don't want to, put words in his mouth, but I want to say almost everybody that comes through the door that's doing a GLP-1 is nutrient deficient.
Yep.
And long term, you're setting yourself up for disease and problems. And that's just the problem, is doing all these, whether it's a fast or a cold plunge or whatever it is, that we're looking for the short term quick fix instead of, like you mentioned, is, well, let's hit the pause button. Let's slow down. Let's figure out your biology, your current physiology, and let's make a program or a plan based on the individual and their objectives.
Yeah. And that reminds me, just peptides in general right now. Those are one of the newest crazes in biohacking is peptides. And there's tons of different ones out there, GLP-1, there's, again, full transparency. I've taken peptides, right? I have taken peptides and they have helped, but am I going to build my foundation on peptides? Absolutely not. There's BPC 157, TB 500. There's, CJC, ipamorelin, Clo. This list goes on and on, and on and on. And what a peptide is, it is a communication modulator, basically. Some of them are amino acids, but what they're doing is our body has receptors for communication points. So for instance, like a GLP-1 is a ghrelin antagonizer. Now here I'm going to make this super simple. There's nobody needs to be a PhD to listen to our podcast, but ghrelin is a hormone that our body creates to say you're hungry. There's also another hormone out there that is released to say, hey, dude, stop stop shoveling food down your face.
We're done.
Yeah. Like you are full, right? So hunger is a hormone, just like any other feeling. Happy, sad, angry, those are all hormones. Well, feeling hungry and feeling full are also hormones. Now we can control those through foods, but if somebody is not triggering a hormone that says you're hungry, guess what? It makes it easier not to eat. That is why they're losing weight. But the thing with peptides, I was reading something just the other day. This guy posted something about, right, peptides are going to be the newest, greatest investment, greatest thing ever. Even and it literally said above your workout, above picking macros, above all these foundational things. And I'm like, I've had it. This is not true. Like, I don't care what peptide you put in your body. You're not going to lose weight if you're eating 1,000 calories more than your baseline. You will never lose weight. It's impossible.
Right.
So, you're not going to put on all this muscle and look, but it is an easier thing. If I just inject this, I'll be great. And that's another thing with peptides. And now you're going to see this because every time we come out with something that's coming out big, you're going to see it starting to evolve. Peptides, for the most part, are in injectable form. Now you're starting to see pill form. Now you're starting to see a nasal spray. Now you're starting to see, all these, these liquid drops. And then we start looking at, right, what's the availability of it? Does your stomach completely digest it? Does it, now we're just diving into the weeds. But because it works to a certain degree, you're going to see companies coming out and say, we can capitalize on this. And they're, no, now we have a patch. Now we have a nasal spray, so you don't have to inject it. Because, people don't want to inject it. But again, that's the protocol that all the tests are on. They're injective, so it just, these are things. And again, they're tools. I absolutely, agree that there are tools out there that can aid in getting us where we need to be. But the point is, if it's not a foundational program, if you don't have the complete foundation completely done, don't start it's like, it's like building a house. Obviously the foundation goes in first. And nobody has ever driven by a house. Nobody ever has ever done this, I promise. And say, hey.
I know what you're going to say. I've told Parks this multiple times.
Hey, honey, look at the foundation of that house. Man, I bet the builder did this and this and this. Look at the shutters, look at the landscaping, look at
look at the sexy parts.
Yes, biohacking is the landscaping. Oh, look where they placed that rock in the front yard. Oh, look at those are these little landscaping type things.
I like that porch.
Exactly. Look at the Christmas lights. Those are the things that make the house, but it's the foundation.
So let's talk about that foundation for a minute. You've helped how many people lose 100 pounds?
So right now it's 35. So I've helped 35 people lose 100 pounds. And this was before GLP-1, the word even came out. Right.
Yeah.
And they followed a plan.
Yeah. So we talk a lot. And since you've joined X Factor, you're still running Joe's Gym and Joe's Nutrition. So let's talk about that foundation that you've built over the last 20 years of helping so many people lose weight. Because I think this is what's missing is that's really should be the focal point, and the sexy part is you just do these things. You change your environment, you change your habits, and you get the result. But instead, we want to biohack. So you've mentioned foundation quite a few times today. So tell me, in if you can, what is that foundation? Somebody comes to you and says, hey, male or female doesn't really matter, but maybe they need, if they need to lose 100 pounds, what's that look like as a foundational protocol?
Yeah. So without the foundation, and this is why people struggle with the foundation, and then we'll go to that. So I'm not skirting the question like a politician would. It is a really hard thing to say, the reason you're overweight, the reason your knees hurt, the way, is you. You're the reason. Your lifestyle is not optimal for what you say you want. And so that's a hard thing for someone to admit and say, believe and accept. It is a lot easier to say the reason I can't lose weight is because I just don't have this new thing. That's like, and they sell it that way. Like,
Yeah, my body doesn't do this right.
My body just doesn't do that. Yours doesn't work like this. So therefore you need it. That's an easier thing to buy into because now there's no,
I'm a victim.
Yes. There is that victim side. So if I look at, fundamentals, it does come down to the number one fundamental is picking something that you can sustain.
Yep.
And that's not, so I'm not telling somebody what that is. I can't tell somebody, well, here's what you need to do to sustain it. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's what can you do to sustain it? And I've got a list here actually. I should have pulled this up. But it's right here. Where's it at?
While you're looking for that, I'm always intrigued. My background as a financial advisor for 25 years, and I was a competitive athlete. And something you just said, and I want to see if this makes sense for what we're talking about today. I always tell people the most successful investment strategy or retirement strategy that they can employ is one that they understand, they can follow, and that they maintain for a long period of time. So they understand it. So the next time the biohack comes along, they understand that, yeah, that's just a trick. They can do it. It's not too much for them, right? It's not, you're 100 pounds overweight. I'm going to go run 20 miles a day. And then 3 is the program or protocol that you can sustain and be disciplined enough to do long term. I'm always intrigued that it's some fundamental principles, and maybe it comes back to discipline, maybe it comes back to commitment, maybe it comes back to the big why or the objective, but I'm always intrigued when those overlap in different industries.
Yeah. So if so picture we're building a pyramid. Right. The bottom is the biggest piece because everything layers up on top of it. Right. So if, obviously if, the top is the most important part, well, and something below it is smaller, that sucker's going to fall over. So sustainability and adherence, that is the foundation, just like, in life, right? Again, investing, right. All that type of stuff. Above that would go finding what your caloric deficit is. What can I do forever? And how much do I need to eat to get there to make it sustainable?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just going to starve myself. Well, do you want to starve yourself forever? No, I don't want to starve myself forever. Okay, then that's not your calorie deficit. Right. We have to find what that is. So a lot of times when I'm working with a client, the first thing I do is I see how much can we possibly eat every day and not gain weight. That's a funner way than saying, okay, just here, starve. Right. I mean, long term, if we just starve ourselves, yes, you can lose weight in 30 days. Congratulations. 60 days, maybe. 90 days, if you haven't lost your wife and your children and your job and everybody around you and all of your loved ones, then I don't, because when you're hungry, it's like that old Snickers commercial, like, hey, you're just hungry, right? Don't go for a Snickers, but go for something else. So we've got sustainability. We've got caloric deficit for you. And then now let's pick an exercise program. Now let's look at self-monitoring. Is this something that you can self-monitor? Then we start looking at protein and fiber intake because that's going to help us be more sustainable. Then we look at carbs and fat macros. Then we look at supplementation.
Yeah.
Now, in today's world, it's magical supplement at the bottom. And then they stack on a bunch of exercise that is not fit for their lifestyle typically.
Would supplements and biohacks be in the same category?
Absolutely. And that's probably what it is. Well, I just need the cold plunge. Dude, you need a gym membership first, maybe. No, I just need this red light therapy cryo chamber. Now, have I done red light? Have I done cold plunge? Have I done cryo? I have done these things as tools. When I had tendonitis flared up my elbow, yeah, let's go stomp this out with some cryo. but it wasn't my foundation of weight loss and all this type of stuff.
You bring up
Now,
a good point. I think GLP-1s, cold plunge, the cold plunge, if you submit to that, I read an article, I was telling you before, I read an article about cold plunge. It actually increases your cortisol because what it is, and the people that profess this to be so awesome is you're tricking your body to, burn fat and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you are tricking your body. You're putting it into a fight or flight mode, which it flushes the system with cortisol. Now, that's not good long term.
your body doesn't know if it's cold plunge or a bucket of poisonous snakes.
Right.
I mean, it's gonna,
Right.
now even taking the cold plunge, like, let's say again, not everybody has the same goals, but let's just say me. I got into this. I wanted to become the next Dorian Yates. I wanted to get so big that I had to custom find jeans, right? I wanted to put on as much muscle as humanly possible. It never happened, but I got close for what was for me. We need a certain level of inflammation to actually trigger muscle growth.
Sure.
What happens is if I'm trying to pack on a bunch of muscle and I stomp out all this inflammation by a switch, you just stomped out the actual mechanism that says go rebuild and repair this muscle tissue.
Right.
So again, these are just tools. But yet if we're just biohacking and we're just buying the newest next thing out there, again, some of these are going to get in your way of the goals that you want to do. I promise you, you're not going to see a bunch of Mr. Olympia competitors out there doing 72-hour water fasts. I promise you, they're not. Right. And it's just, it's funny because in bodybuilding, yes, I have been sub 3% body fat and I've done it several times. And all these biohack weight loss protocols, I never did them. I don't know any bodybuilder that's ever done them, and they've all lost fat.
Right.
Don't eat this after this time. Well, and I would do it and I'd still lose fat. Well, don't eat this. Don't eat sugary stuff because it's going to spike your insulin and you can't lose weight. I would drink dextrose powder on purpose to spike my insulin. And I'd still lose weight. So all these things that are out there, we just make these blanket statements that if this happens, then this won't happen. And then you can prove it over and over again that yes, it does. There's just so much more to this. Now,
well, it's like a good lie always has an element of truth.
Yes.
And I think that's the biohack, world that we live in is are all peptides bad? No. Is cold plunge bad? No. Is GLP-1 bad? No. It's not the only part of the answer. It's not the only part of the story. And so when used, it's kind of the old adage is everything's not a nail and you have more than a hammer.
Yep.
And use the right tools. And tools are great, but the foundation is not the biohack.
And that's where, when you look at that foundational piece I just kind of covered, one thing it did not mention in there is testing, right? So if I just step back from it and just said, yeah, hey, that was the protocol that I followed before I even understood genetic testing. That was my entire business was built on those 7 fundamentals, and it worked. But at the same time, looking back, could it have worked better if we understood that person's biology different than somebody else? Because in all reality, again, absolute full transparency, for the most part, I had most of my clients working out the exact same way, X amount of times a day. I mean, I had my wife running a protocol that after I understood her genetics, it just meant I would have changed the exercise protocol in there a little bit better.
Yeah,
could
right.
And been better. Yes.
So that brings up another part is, so some of the people maybe listening, if your trainer, if your coach is just has a blanket protocol, like I was talking to a coach the other day and he coaches people to do Ironmans and marathons. And I brought up the subject of genetics and his comment, I think genuinely because he doesn't fully understand it yet, like a lot of coaches, is They just don't understand the benefits or the efficiency of custom tailoring their workout regimen. So, meaning, take your wife, for example, and if with her genetics, she responds differently to strength training, so she should train differently than somebody like you who responds yet again differently. So talk about that for a moment because I suspect there's some people watching, listening that excuse me, their coach might not understand the capabilities today and maybe relying on the this is the way I've done it for 20 years
Yeah.
or the current biohack.
Well, I mean, that was me. I mean, literally, that was me. I'm a recovering guy with emotional attachments, you know, um, because we all do that. We have an emotional attachment to a specific style. So therefore, so then we have to justify my style with the client. See, my client did this and they got results. And therefore, it's just because if I train, I'm going to get results. I mean, that's just, if I go into a calorie deficit, I'm going to get results. If I train, lifting weights versus not, I'm going to get results. It's, do I want the best results? We have genetics, and each gene that is tested, they've linked all this stuff together. Not to dive into the science, but I mean, obviously there's thousands and thousands and thousands of genes. Like, one of the genes that we do not test is hair color. They already know that. They don't need to know. Congratulations, you're blonde. Yep,
I
I knew
might
that.
need to know.
That's right. I'm not sure. Mine's kind of gray now, not brown. So I don't know. I don't know what gene that is, but how our body responds to resistance training is different. And this is driven by genetics. So
Right.
if we can match up a specific protocol, and that usually means, yes, rep range, how often somebody should train, how long they should rest. If I'm overdoing it in the gym, I'm still going to get results, but they're going to be hindered.
Right.
And this happened for me. For 10 years, I trained like a specific bodybuilder. And I got results, but it was also like, I'm just looking at this like, man, this should be happening a little bit better. Somebody introduced me to another style of training. I tried it and I responded differently. Was it because each one of those individuals were right or wrong? No, it's that just matched my genetics better. And we guessed, and it took me 10 to 15 years to figure that out, basically. Going back in time, if I'd have just known what my genetics were and it says this lines up with this style a little bit better, I would have gotten significantly better results over time. So
How long
I
did
learn
it?
it, I get results, and I tell my wife, well, this is what works, but she should have trained she should have trained the other way, and she would
Right.
have gotten better results in a condensed time frame.
So how long did it take your clients that lost 100 pounds or more? On average, was it
So
18 months? Was
the
it?
fastest I ever had was a guy lost 146 pounds in exactly 1 year.
Wow.
And I also
Okay.
had a client lose 150 pounds over 3 years. So
Okay.
one just
So,
wanted it more than the other, right?
well, so the average, if we were to just take those two, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Do you think by knowing and understanding their genetics and their physiology a little bit more, like what their food sensitivities might be, what do you suspect? And I know I'm asking you to throw a dart, but
It would be it.
20%?
They would definitely drop probably 15 to 20% time. Um,
So
and
if
there's
you, so
and
what
there's
I'm
many
trying to,
reasons why.
yeah, but so driving at the numbers of it, right? I'm the numbers guy. So driving at the numbers of it, if they were able to save 20, 25% more efficiency, so just take a gym membership at your average gym, so my gym I belong to is $80 a month, right? Well, if it took the guy 3 years, shaved 20% off of that, that's real money in savings. But not to
Absolutely.
mention, it's an increase in motivation because it's like that snowball, right? You start to see results. And so I just can't help but think I'd be interested to crunch numbers deeper on that and understand because what we're talking about is the old school way of doing things works because it's trial and error, and a good coach is going to tweak and modify your program to your results, right? Oh, we're not getting well, let's dial in your macros or let's, amp up your workouts. Well, those things work, but I think sometimes it's just more math and time, where what we're saying is if you put in some foundational protocols and understand the more efficient way to work your body, the better the results you're going to
Well,
get.
yeah, a great point on that. If you look at that pyramid that I put together, those fundamentals, one of them is carbs and fats.
Yeah.
Well, I used to adjust. Hey, maybe you're responding better to this. And then I would flip flop, carbs and fats. Here's your calories, but now let's flip flop your versus, I don't know, let's just run a test that tells you where to put your carbs and fats. And then that would have saved, I'm telling you, that alone would have saved a ton of time, because we also have emotional attachments to carbs and fats. Like,
Right.
people don't have the emotional attachment to protein. It's just, I know I need more. Like, that's what people say, but it's carbs bad, fats good. But if you go back 20 years ago, 30 years from now, it's carbs are good, fats are bad, and it's just, right. It's now we're at the whim of just what's popular versus saying your genetics specifically handle carbs this way and your genetics specifically handle fats this way. So when I'm building that plan, I'm not taking any guesswork. I'm not making those small, minor tweaks over the next 6 months to figure out where that ratio needs to be. I'm doing it month one.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not waiting on that.
Yeah. Oh, I think that the other side of it is, we've talked about a lot of different biohacks, red lights, cold plunge, stuff like that. But the one that's so popular in my mind that's been around for 100 plus years is the diets, right? I mean, there's so many different diets that are all just regurgitated and nobody really truly understands them.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we were talking earlier before, Atkins, arguably a very successful diet. There were people losing weight. Hell, the grapefruit diet, where people just ate grapefruit and did whatever because grapefruit was supposed to, that was a thing. Literally the grapefruit diet, and then paleo came out, and then paleo became keto, and then keto became carnivore, and the Whole30 and the elimination and the anti-inflammatory diet. You're just doing this because, but yet the anti-inflammatory diet lists all these items that half of those are on my inflammatory list, right? So, right, they're just throwing these known protocols out there versus saying, diving into your body and looking under the hood and saying, how does this work for your particular body? And then you go in at the very top of that pyramid of supplements. Guys, I got a client that was spending over $600 a month on supplements. Just
Wow.
the methylation test alone saved her over time, because at the
Yeah.
end of that, she went from spending about 600 to like a 16th of that
I
because of a methylation test.
So you mentioned Whole30, and so we all have our emotional bias, right? And so my wife and I did Whole30 years ago, and I lost 20 pounds.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it, right? Whole30, you cut out all the garbage, the junk. I'll be damned. Was it really the Whole30, or was it that I quit drinking soda and eating all the garbage?
Yeah.
Now, I like the Whole30 premise, whole food, right? And eliminate a lot of different things. But again, it's just another diet. It's just another fad. And so if we focus on just whole food, balanced nutrition according to what your body needs, your body, not mine, that just makes so much more sense.
Well, yeah. So let's take Whole30. Again, I don't have any issues with that particular diet. I don't have any issues with a lot of diets. But okay, so Whole30, these are the approved foods. Okay, what are our macro ratios going to be now?
Right.
Okay, well, that is based on genetics. Well, I'm going to do keto. Okay, well, keto is more of a clean eating diet, right? Okay, so someone's going to do keto. Okay, well, where's your macro ratios need to be? Well, it says here you have a below average ability to utilize fat and enhanced ability to utilize carbs.
That's me.
Well, yeah, but my neighbor, I understand your neighbor did keto and lost X. Your neighbor
Right.
is also 10 years younger than you. Your neighbor is also a female, or your neighbor is also again, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Your genetics are going to say this is going to be optimal for you. And if and someone might run a DNA test and say keto is perfect for you. Literally.
Right.
It might come out and confirm, hey, you know what? Keto is a great thing for you. I'll be transparent on that one. I've yet to see a genetic protocol that says that's the best diet for anybody I've tested so far. But
The keto.
yeah. I have yet to have a single client have an enhanced ability to utilize fat.
Well, so let's talk about that, man, because that was the diet that I had actually most recently looked at. And when I say diet, I'm more in the line of nutritional path, right? Or that's the way I want to go. And I probably heard about it through the social media grapevine or whatever, but I have some experience with the Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, Minnesota, and I came across, probably because of my algorithm, I came across a Mayo Clinic keto diet. And I thought, well, I'll be damned. Well, I'm not going to follow TikTok Bob. I'm going to go spend $100 on the Mayo Clinic meal plan that's ketogenic. And it wasn't maybe a couple days later, I got my DNA test back and it showed that I had a uh, less than efficient body to process fat. So here I am wanting to get healthier, wanting to lose a little bit of weight. And I think I'm doing the right thing. I am going to the Mayo Clinic, who is sponsored and selling a keto diet meal plan. I'm going to spend money to purchase, which in as far as a reasonable person, the Mayo Clinic is offering it. Gosh, that's got to be decent, right? It's got to be good. And here I only find out, luckily, before I purchase, that my body doesn't process fats efficiently as some others.
Yeah, and that's and then there's even the claims. There's keto for cancer, and again, we're not diving into that. But at the same time, yes, there are protocols out there for very specific types of
Right.
ailments and all this. But when it comes down to a foundational program that somebody says, look, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. you know, People get to that point where it's just like, oh, nothing's working anymore. One, the reason nothing's working is because they have not picked something that they can sustain.
Well,
They're jumping and they're jumping and they're jumping and they're
yeah.
jumping. And one, they're not letting anything come to fruition. Like I've got a client, guys, she has lost, what was it? Since January till the last week of February, 16 pounds.
Wow.
And in her mind, she's like, I just thought I'd be further ahead. I'm like, wait a minute. She can't see these big visible changes. I can. Everybody else around her is like, you are killing it. But in her own mind, that's where the self-sabotage comes in. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, if it's not 16 pounds and she's up muscle, she's down body fat. I mean, this is beyond picture perfect results, but we self-sabotage ourselves. And if somebody didn't have a good strategy, a good plan, she has done genetic testing. We've done every review. It's like massaging her brain to be like, look, this is the path. Like this is it.
Right.
You are right on pace. She would have been a candidate for the next biohack.
Right.
Well, you
Right.
know what? And I fully believe this. I think most people get ready to click that purchase button on any program, on any new device, new magic wand, new heart rate monitor, or a ring, whatever it is. They are getting ready to hit purchase, And everything in me thinks, they're thinking, this probably won't work. But they're thinking, but it might.
Yeah.
While they're hitting that, they're sitting there thinking, this is probably not even going to work. It's probably a gimmick. I know I probably shouldn't even do this. My wife or husband's going to be pissed when they see this, but I'm going to do it. And it's going to give me some hope to go for another week and another week. You know, they're looking for this kind of hope. And I think they really, truly believe that it's probably not even going to work. But they're just like, what if it does? It's not that much money. You know, it's only
Right.
$67. you know, they're like, I've blown that on more. But all of a sudden, you're like, hey, let's run a test. Because I've had people do this, years in the past. They do this, and this, and it didn't work. And I said, I don't know, maybe go check your hormones. And then they'd be reluctant. And then finally they would. And then they'd come back and they're like, my hormones are perfectly fine. Right. And then I'd be like, well, I guess now, again, knowing what I know now, hormones are just a small fraction of it. It is a factor, but it's a small factor. But I think people are reluctant to sometimes do testing because it's going to confirm what they already know.
Oh, for sure.
It's my lifestyle. I need to change. I need to, stop doing this. And you know what? Now all of a sudden I have to take responsibility for the results that I have gotten. And I got to take responsibility for the results that I am not getting.
Well, and that's the bitter pill, right? Yep. And that's why doctors no longer tell people you're fat.
Right.
Oh, you're okay. No, I'm not.
No. Yep.
I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, I think, quite frankly, this was years ago for me. I think that's where physicians and our medical community has began the loss in credibility.
Yep.
I mean, I can tell you there are a number of obese people that, oh, my doctor says I'm doing fine, but my knees hurt. Well, I have a perfect example. You're carrying around 40 pounds more than you should be, and your knees are telling you. I mean, I just went for a ruck this morning, 3.5 miles, and I put on a 40-pound ruck vest. Guess what? My knees hurt. I mean, those are some of the things that are just like so obvious, but at the same time, you nailed it, is those are the hard things for some people to admit to themselves.
Yeah, it is a, I mean, and that's just human nature. People want to, look outside of them. But for the person and that's why I can almost tell the people that I work with who are going to get mega success and the ones who won't. I can tell within the first week, because a lot of times the ones that struggle are so hyper focused on what they have to give up and what they have to quit and all the things, all the depravity that they have to have. And the ones who get major results are focused on how great it's going to be.
Right.
Right. If I do this, they get excited. They're making changes. They've taken ownership in it, where the other ones are like, man, I can't give up such and such. I can't, stop doing this. I can't stop doing this. And it's, they get so focused on a lifestyle that isn't serving them but yet they can't give it up.
Right.
And that's where it comes down to sustainability. And one thing I've never been is total depravity, throw everything out, start from scratch. I've never been that. Hey, let's build the foundation. Let's do this. Let's start drinking water. Let's start increasing your protein. Let's start moving in a pattern that's going to line up with your genetics. Let's start doing this. And then, okay, 2 weeks in, okay, now let's throw in some more. Now let's start making some more changes. Now let's start making some more changes. Next thing you know, 6 months, a year and a half goes by. You've lost 150 pounds. You stayed the course. You got excited about what you're doing. And guess what? Did you dip your toe in a cold tank? Well, I did once at this expo and I hated it. Okay. Did you do all this other? No, they just did the fundamental things. And then again, if you want to throw those things, again, I know there's going to be, evidence says that. Yes, there is evidence towards these biohacks. I'm taught there is evidence, but there's no evidence that says this is what you should bank on for your entire life. Right. Yes, there is evidence to beneficial behaviors and beneficial rewards. Yes, there is evidence. I will say that. But They are not foundational. It is not the things that you should be investing your time, money, and energy into until we build something that is sustainable. You can build your habits and your routine around it. And then if you have a little extra time, hell, go jump in a cold plunge.
That's fun. Awesome. Well, where should people go to get started on that path?
So several things. I always try to talk to several different types of people. The do-it-yourselfer. Hey, by all means, if you think you've got enough, again, go through those 7 fundamentals. Go build your own and go have at it. But build your put all of your time and energy in proportion to those fundamentals. Can you do this on your own? Absolutely. Will it be a heck of a lot easier if you had some help and advice? Absolutely. It's one of those things like if someone said, hey, go run through that minefield. Well, hey, there's a guy over here that's been back and forth on that minefield 70 times. I can either follow him or hell, just take off running. Yeah, I think I'm going to get a guide. I think I'm going to have somebody who's been through there and has charted the course and, and knows what they're doing, because another episode that we're going to do is the cost of not doing this, the cost of winging it, the cost of doing this on your own. A lot of times, again, the cost of this is time that you don't get back. I mean, we all say, if I knew then what I know now, life would be different. We all say that. If you can find all of this information without the guesswork and get an absolute plan that you can say, this is exactly what you need to do. I equate this to when I was 12 years old, my family took a trip for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks in the summer. We drove up to Seattle. We're in central Iowa. We drove up to Seattle, down the coast to Santa Cruz, California, and back in 2.5 weeks. I thought my father was going to end my life and my brother's life and my sister's life 6,000 times along the way, because guess what? We had no plan. We just said we're going to go that way, this way, and come back. My dad wanted to see this. I wanted to see this. My brother wanted to do this. My sister wanted to do this. My mom was just, and it was a disaster because versus, hey, today we're going to do this, line it up, plan it out. I'm telling you, it was a vacation from hell, right? Y'all seen, right, Christmas Vacation. This was like way worse than that, or, Vacation or whatever one of those ones were. I would say reach out, I'm a coach. Megan's a coach. Jim can point people, in the right direction. I even say this, I don't charge for my time. I don't charge to have a talk to somebody and give some fundamental advice. Maybe that's it. Maybe we create a relationship. I'm not going to sit and say, oh, that's $50 a text. I wish I could, but that ain't going to happen. But if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, reach out, get a plan, understand be presented with, look, if any of this stuff confused you, it means you're normal. If you've understood everything I said about methylation and this and that, and you understand this, well, again, you're probably going to be fine. But if you're confused on any of this stuff, you're normal. What would it look like to have a full-on plan based on someone's genetics, and what would that look like? And, have somebody walk you through that. I promise you're going to be like, I am very comfortable with that approach. Because one of the things that's hindering somebody from getting results is they're just not comfortable with the process they're doing. It's still winging it. Oh, what's today have in store for me? What's today have in store for me? And week to week, things change and life's throwing everything at you versus saying, look, this is exactly what a 6-month time frame, a 12-week time frame, a 1-year time frame is going to look like. And we're going to do it based on data. And if it's your data, you're going to believe it. And if you believe it, you're going to do a lot more of it.
Right.
Yep.
I would say reach out ASAP.
Yeah. Well, and I think the disclaimer, right, is a lot of these biohacks, just like everything, like a good story's got to have a little bit of truth to it. We're not saying that GLP-1s don't have a place. We're not saying that calorie deficiencies don't have a place. We're not saying that cold plunges don't have a place. What we're saying is you've got to get the bigger things right first.
Yep.
So
that's exactly it. Get the big important things figured out now, and the other things can just be, just kind of grease on the wheels.
Yep. Awesome. Well, if anybody's interested, click the link below in the description. And until next time, stop guessing, start testing, and
Smash that like button.
unlock your true X factor.